Shocking truth. Poor girl sold to a hunter, but he's actually a dark billionaire mafia boss. In the dim light of the rundown motel, Sophie shivered, her heart pounding like a drum. She had been sold. Sold to a man whose name sent shivers down the spines of those who whispered it. Most didn't even dare to utter the hunter, because his reputation was enough to haunt nightmares. A dark powerhouse, cloaked in luxury, he operated from the shadows, pulling strings that snapped lives apart like twigs. The sounds of distant sirens echoed eerily, as if the city itself warned her of the danger lurking just beyond the creaky door. Her stomach twisted as she recalled how she ended up here. The bright lights of the fair seemed innocent enough at first. Kids laughed, rides spun joyfully, music filled the air. But beneath that festive facade lay a darkness. It was a quick transaction, a desperate bid for money to help support her sick mother. All she had to do was get picked for a special show. They made it sound like an opportunity, promising her fame, when in truth, it felt more like a trap. She felt as if the air was thickening around her, making it hard to breathe. Outside her window, a sleek black car pulled into the gravel driveway, and a figure emerged. She couldn't see his face, but the way he moved, predatory, purposeful, sent panic racing through her veins. What did he want with her? Would he hurt her? Or worse? She could barely keep her thoughts from spiraling into darkness. The motel door creaked open slowly, like a scene from a horror movie, and every muscle in her body tensed. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The door swung open, revealing his towering figure and icy demeanor. He was dressed in a tailored suit that seemed out of place in the shabby surroundings. Dark sunglasses shielded his eyes, and a smirk danced on his lips, as if he relished the moment. "You must be Sophie," he said, his voice a low growl that made her skin crawl. Panic surged within her. This was it. She could feel the weight of despair, a lump forming in her throat as she suppressed a scream. Did he know the truth? Did he know she was just a girl trying to survive? The tension thickened as he took a step forward, and her pulse quickened, each beat echoing like thunder in the silence. She felt trapped, a deer caught in headlights, just waiting for the inevitable crash. And just as her mind raced with possibilities of what could happen next, an unexpected sound broke through the low hum of her phone buzzing on the table. In that moment of distraction, would she find salvation or finality? What secrets did this dark figure hold? And would she escape the shadows or become another lost soul in his world? Sophie's heart raced as she eyed the phone, the sound of its persistent buzzing cutting through the heavy air. What if it was someone reaching out to help her? Hope flickered, but despair clung to her like a damp shroud. She feigned nonchalance, unwilling to show this man he had rattled her, but inside, panic bubbled. "The phone," she stammered, forcing her voice to steady. "It's just a text." The hunter remained unfazed, tilting his head slightly, an amused glint flickering behind his dark glasses. She couldn't see his eyes, but she could feel them boring into her, like twin daggers trying to peel away her bravado. "Go ahead, answer it." She hesitated, a storm of emotions swirling: curiosity, fear, and that nagging glimmer of hope. Taking a breath, she reached for the phone. The screen lit up, revealing a message from a number she didn't recognize. An image alongside the message made her heart race all over again. It was a picture of her mother, breathing but frail, a stark reminder of the stakes. "Your mother is in good hands," the text read for now. A chill ran down her spine. The hunter stepped closer, and she accidentally locked eyes with him, a mistake she quickly regretted. His presence seeped into the room like smoke, invasive and suffocating. Looks like your mother has become a point of leverage, he said, a cruel smile spreading across his lips. What a touching way to motivate you. Sophie gripped the phone tighter, her knuckles whitening. What do you want from me? She demanded, trying to muster courage in the face of her dread. Is this all a game to you? Game? Oh, sweetheart, this is much more than a game, he replied, stepping closer still. This is business, a billion-dollar enterprise. And you, my dear, are a crucial piece. Crucial? The word hung in the air, heavy and grotesque. Fear surged around her, each beat of her heart hammering the truth of her situation into her mind. You're sick. He laughed, a sound cold enough to send shivers down her spine. No, I'm pragmatic. I see potential. You have talent, one that can sell better than any simple act at that pathetic fair. She recoiled, her body instinctively backing away until she hit the wall. I'm not some act. I'm a person. Her voice cracked, the sentiment simmering with desperation that he paused, eyeing her with curiosity. Perhaps we should test that theory, huh? Let us see what you're truly made of. Sophie's breath caught in her throat. What did he mean? The dread coiling in her stomach only tightened as she caught a glimpse of a glimmering watch on his wrist. The opulence screamed of power, money, and danger. Each second felt like a countdown, and she sensed the walls of her world closing in. Everything has a price, Sophie, he continued, a low taunt lacing his words. And you'll soon learn how much skin you'll need to shed in order to stay alive. Just as the weight of his words sank in, the motel door swung open once more, and in walked a trio of men clad in dark attire, their presence radiating menace. Sophie's mind spiraled. Was this the team of shadows he'd decommand? What fresh hell awaited her now? Her instincts screamed for action, but she felt paralyzed, caught in a web of fear and uncertainty. Would she be dragged deeper into his dark world, or could she still find a way out? The hunter leaned in closer, his breath hot against her ear. Are you ready for your first lesson, Sophie? As dread wrapped around her like a suffocating blanket, she realized there was no escaping this nightmare. But her heart thumped with defiance. She had to fight. Whatever happened next, she would not go quietly. And as the looming shadows approached, the question hung heavy in the air. Would her spirit shatter, or would it ignite into a flame ready to challenge the darkness? The air in the cramped motel room froze, thick with unspoken words and monstrous intentions. Sophie felt a surge of adrenaline coursing through her veins. The three men stepped forward, their eyes scanning her as if she were nothing but a piece of meat, ready to be carved up. She swallowed hard, panic mixing with a growing anger. Keep it together, she whispered under her breath, unsure if the words were meant for her or a last desperate plea to the universe. The hunter stepped aside, making room as the men moved closer. Each of them wore dark sunglasses, their expressions hidden behind layers of intimidation. One man, bulky with tattoos snaking around his forearms, cracked his knuckles, the sound reverberating ominously. We're here for the girl, he growled, his voice deep and gravelly, like rocks grinding together. The girl? Sophie echoed, her voice barely a whisper. The dread sat like a boulder in her stomach. Yeah, the girl who was about to learn how to play the big leagues, the hunter interjected, his smile broadening as he gestured toward her. Sophie is about to become part of something transformative. The tattooed man scoffed. She doesn't look like much. She's more than you think, the hunter replied, his eyes gleaming. She has to embrace her potential or face the consequences. Isn't that right, Sophie? What does that even mean? She asked, her voice trembling but defiant. She desperately needed answers, but she also needed to stall to buy time. You'll find out soon enough, he smirked, stepping back and allowing the men to close in further. Let us just say, your mother won't be the only one under pressure. Sophie's heart sank at the mention of her mother. The threat hung in the air like dark smoke, suffocating her resolve. She forced herself to stand tall, feeling the invisible weight of the situation pressing down. With her pulse racing, she glanced around the room, searching for anything that might serve as a weapon or a means of escape. But the walls felt like they were closing in. She was trapped. A soft click stole her attention. The tall man in the back had taken out a knife, flicking the blade open with an unsettling grace. He held it up, letting the feeble light glint off the steel. "We can do this the easy way or the hard way," he said, his voice deceptively calm. "Why don't you show her how that works?" The hunter suggested, feigning nonchalance. "I'm sure she'll appreciate the lesson." The bulky man took a step closer, the knife glinting wickedly as he brandished it, the tip hovering dangerously near her face. "Just a little nick, a reminder of your new reality." Sophie's breath quickened. They wanted to break her, to show her just how vulnerable she was. But that's exactly what she couldn't allow. A spark ignited within her. She couldn't let fear consume her like it wanted to. In a moment of pure instinct, Sophie spun toward the door, her resolve fueling her steps. With a surge of determination, she screamed, "Let her go. I want to participate in your sick game." The men paused, surprise flashing across their faces, but the hunter simply chuckled darkly. "Interesting choice, Sophie. But don't you see? You've already stepped into the arena. There's no way out now." Suddenly, the door burst open. A figure clad in black, masked and menacing, charged into the room, shifting the balance of power in an instant. Gasps filled the air. The tension snapped like a tightrope ready to break. "Get down," the figure barked, raising a weapon, a gun aimed directly at the hunter, who stood frozen in disbelief. Sophie felt a jolt of hope, yet dread coiled tightly around her heart. Whose side was this new player on? The weight of the room shifted again, and she realized she was standing on the precipice of a decision. Would this act of rebellion be her saving grace or lead her deeper into danger? And then came the crash of chaos as the masked figure stepped forward, leaving Sophie hanging in a web of uncertainty. What had she just unleashed? The silence shattered like glass. Sophie's heart thundered in her chest as the masked figure stepped fully into view, the dim light catching glimmers of the weapon he brandished. Cold metal, a promise of protection or perhaps further peril. "What the hell is going on?" one of the men demanded, his voice rising as confusion flooded his features. The bulky man with the knife shifted nervously, glancing between the hunter and the newcomer, his bravado wavering for the first time. Sophie dove to the side, hoping to stay out of the line of fire, every instinct screaming at her to escape. She had no clue who this masked figure was, but if they were here to help, she couldn't afford to falter now. The gun aimed unwaveringly at the hunter, and Sophie could see the glimmer of sweat rolling down his temple. "You want tea? Take her," the masked figure shouted, voice full of raw intensity. "Not today." The hunter regained some composure, a twisted smile creeping across his face. "You think you can just march in here with your little toy and threaten me? You have no idea who you're dealing with." "I know enough," the masked figure shot back, the gun never wavering. "You're a coward who hides behind fear and manipulation." Sophie took a breath, trying to find her own voice amid the chaos. "What do you want?" she asked, her tone more assertive now, a flicker of determination replacing fear. The masked figure's eyes darted to her, surprise evident in the momentary lapse of focus. "Just stay back," he urged, its tone softer, showing he didn't want her involved in this violence. But that felt wrong. This was her life, her mother's safety on the line. "No, I'm not going anywhere until I know what is happening." Before he could respond, the bulky man lunged, desperate to disarm the masked figure. The action was sudden, a quick flash of movement that seemed choreographed for disaster. The masked figure sidestepped fluently, still holding his aim on the hunter, and somehow it all unfolded like an explosion. The sound of skin tearing through the air filled the room as he swung the gun around, landing a blow directly against the bulky man's jaw. The man stumbled back, crashing against the wall with a heavy grunt, shock splashing across his face. "Run!" the masked figure yelled, pleading for her to act while he was momentarily distracting the others. Sophie scrambled for the door, adrenaline pushing her forward, but she hesitated. Her conscience clawed at her. She couldn't abandon him, this stranger who'd thrown himself in the line of fire for her sake. She needed to know more to understand the stakes they were playing for. "Hold on," she shouted, her voice echoing off the walls. "What do you know about my mother?" The hunter's eyes narrowed, a flicker of panic slipping through his facade. "You know nothing, girl. Move, and it's over for everyone." But the masked man's keen gaze remained fixed on her. "I'll explain everything, but we have to get out of here first." Before she could answer, another man rushed in from behind, unseen until that very moment. Sophie felt time freeze. The figure, slick in dark clothes, tackled the masked protector, sending them both crashing to the floor in a brutal mass of limbs, the gun flying from the masked figure's hand. "No!" Sophie yelled, rushing towards them, only to be yanked back by the remaining thug who had been quietly watching, waiting for the right moment to strike. "Stay out of this, darling," he purred, wicked pleasure coloring his voice. Panic gripped Sophie, and then she spotted the gun, sliding across the floor, coming to rest just beyond the reach of the grappling fighters. The room was a whirlwind of desperate clashes and mingled breaths, each second an eternity. Trust was a dangerous game, and Sophie was right in the middle. Could she risk it all to grab that gun? With the world around her folding in on itself, she made up her mind if she was going to survive, she wouldn't just stand by. But would her next move spell salvation or doom? Sophie's pulse raced like a runaway train. The chaotic scene blurred around her as adrenaline coursed through her veins. Each heartbeat fueled her determination. She had to act. In an instant, she dove toward the sliding gun, fingers outstretched. The metallic coolness felt like safety in that moment, but danger lurked everywhere. She could almost taste it. Just as her fingertips brushed against the weapon, the burly man regained his footing, eyes wide with fury. "Sophie, you know." The masked figure's voice broke through her focus, strained and desperate. She hesitated, the gun tantalizingly close. The thug's grip tightened around her wrist, pulling her back, his sneer wide and triumphant. "You're not getting that toy, sweetheart." The wrestling pair on the floor grunted, their bodies tangled in a primal struggle. But Sophie couldn't look away from the cold, lifeless gun inches from her. It felt as if time stretched, a horrifying tension hanging in the air. Without thinking, she twisted out of the thug's grasp, adrenaline increasing her strength. Her hand shot forward again, gripping the gun while she felt sheer panic cascading around her. She could hear the muffled thuds and maddened grunts of the combatants, each sound a reminder of how fragile her chances were. "Drop it." The hunter's voice broke through, venomous and commanding. He was regaining his composure, assessing the chaos. Sophie felt the weight of the weapon in her hands, fear and resolve clashing within her. "Is this who I'm supposed to be scared of?" she yelled, her voice steadying despite the turmoil around her. "I want to be your pawn." The masked figure threw a punch, sending one of the assailants reeling back. But they were still too outnumbered. "You don't know what they're capable of," he warned, breathless from the fight. The thug that had grabbed her snarled, "You'll regret this." He lunged at her, a storm of rage, but Sophie's instincts took over. She pointed the gun at him, arms shaking but voice resolute. "Stay back." The room fell silent. All eyes shifted to her, fear and disbelief mingling in the air. "Put that down, girl." The hunter's voice dripped with menace. "You want to shoot me. You haven't got the guts." "No guts? You don't know me," she countered, her finger brushing the trigger. The weight of every moment before this crashed down on her. Her family, her mother's safety. Everything hinged on this one choice. "Don't listen to him," the masked figure implored, his breath ragged. "You can trust me." The hunter moved, his form gliding like a predator eyeing its prey. "You think he's on your side?" "He's just as bad as I am. You're a means to an end, Sophie. Nothing more." "What do you mean?" Sophie shot back, feeling pieces of her reality unravel. "Enough of this." The bulky man surged forward, ramming into the masked figure and sending them both tumbling. The gun trembled in Sophie's grip. It felt heavy now, like the weight of the world pressing down on her. She backed away involuntarily as shadows shuddered and masks twisted, each man now a lurking threat against her fragility. "Get out!" The masked figure shoved himself up, swinging wildly, desperation igniting something fierce as he fought to reclaim control of the situation. The other thugs streamed toward him, a pack of wolves closing in. "We're not letting you go," one growled, sidestepping towards Sophie, malice twisting their features. "Don't you get it?" Sophie shouted, her voice steadying, firing with determination. "I'm not afraid of you, any of you." But when she insisted on her newfound power, doubt flickered within her. Did she believe the masked man? Could she trust him enough to join the fight? The world tilted again, pressure climbing like smoke filling a room. Everyone froze, waiting for her next move. "What's it going to be, Sophie?" The masked figure's question hung in the air, waiting as if filled with implications that could reverberate forever in that moment. And then, she knew she wasn't leaving. But was that bravery, or was it sheer foolishness? With breaths caught in her throat, she gripped the gun tighter, uncertain of what her choice would unleash next. Sophie's heart thundered like a drum roll, drowning out the chaos surrounding her. Her grip around the gun seemed to tighten, as if merging into one with it. Faces twisted in shock, eyes glinted with menace. The masked figure fought valiantly, but the odds were overwhelming. She took a steadying breath. "Get away from him!" The words burst from her, fueled by a desperation that eclipsed fear. The thug who had threatened her eyed the gun with newfound respect, but also a smirk that suggested he viewed her as a fleeting second of bravery. "You think that thing can save you?" He taunted, inching closer, his bulk blocking her view of the chaos strategy. "You're just a scared little girl, and you're out of your depth." No, her voice wavered, but she forced strength into it. "I'm not scared." In a flash, the masked figure stumbled back to her, panting, his face etched with urgency and something deeper. Was it trust? "Point it at them, Sophie. Pull the trigger if you have to. Fight back, or you'll join them in the ground," hissed the hunter, stepping forward with arrogance, stepping into Sophie's line of sight deliberately. "You'll find, little girl, that pulling the trigger changes everything. You'll become what you fear most." Her mind raced. The words echoed, heavy like chains around her consciousness. But before she could think further, the hulking thug lunged again. Sophie raised the gun, a surge of adrenaline electrifying her limbs. "Get back!" she screamed, the fear now sloughing off like old skin. But the thug laughed, a guttural, mocking sound that spurred her fierceness. She pulled the trigger. The loud bang ricocheted off the walls, a shocking chorus that silenced the moment. Sophie's finger shook as she felt the recoil. The round exploded into the floor near his feet, sending shards of plaster flying. The thug stumbled, eyes wide in disbelief, his bravado plummeting. "Shoot again!" the masked figure shouted, rallying to push through the din of chaos. "Finish this!" In that split second, the hunter's visage transformed. The menace faded, replaced with palpable anger. "You made a big mistake, girl," he snarled. "You think you're now a warrior? You'll learn the hard way." Another brawl erupted, fists colliding, bodies thudding against each other. Sophie stood frozen as chaos unfolded. She wanted nothing more than to flee, to escape this nightmare. Yet here she remained, revolted by the idea of retreating while she had the chance. Somewhere close, fists hit flesh. This was a dance of pure survival now. The masked figure managed a kick against the assailant struggling with him, heaving his weight in Sophie's direction. With a fleeting midair glance, he shouted again, "Now help me." Fighting every instinct that screamed to run, Sophie finally took a step forward. She felt a rush of decision, concrete and vibrant. "You think you can control me? I will fight." The thugs exchanged bewildered looks, disbelief etched across their faces. The hunter's anger twisted into something more sinister as he readied himself, muscles taut against the impending confrontation. "Clever girl," he spat, "but you chose the wrong side." Sophie could see the movement around her, a frenzied melee where alliances shifted in a heartbeat. She was standing between the writhing chaos and the possibility of survival. Heart pounding in her ears, she raised the gun again. A choice loomed larger than life. Yet a voice murmured, faint but persistent. If you shoot now, what will you become? In that heartbeat, Sophie saw the truth. The line between right and wrong blurred. Righteousness battled with the instinct for survival. What was she really willing to sacrifice? With adrenaline pumping, Sophie swallowed her fear. The stakes were staggering, yet the clarity was overwhelming. Let us end this, she said, more to herself than anyone else. But as she braced for her next move, something shattered glass breaking in the background. All heads turned, a surprise entrance poised to tip the scales even further. And in that moment of panic, Sophie realized this might not end how she imagined. Her breath caught once more as she prepared to face whatever horror awaited beyond the door. What had she unwittingly invited inside? A deafening crash echoed through the dimly lit space, a shattering of expectations and fears alike. The sound jerked Sophie's focus from the chaotic brawl to the door, now splintered and swinging open. Shadows danced at its edges, framing an ominous silhouette. Fear coiled tightly in Sophie's gut as she struggled to make sense of the figure that dared to intrude upon their nightmare. "Who are you?" she choked out, her grip tightening around the gun. The figure stepped forward, revealing a suit that gleamed under the flickering overhead lights. He was tall, with a confidence that seeped into the air like an intoxicating poison. A sharp smile twisted his lips, dark and knowing, sending a chill racing down Sophie's spine. "Just a friend of the hunter," he drawled, his voice smooth as silk yet brimming with danger. "Isn't this quite the party?" With a flick of his wrist, he produced a gleaming pistol, balancing it casually on his finger. Whispers of recognition rippled through the crowded room as others took note of his entrance. The masked figure's eyes widened, a glimmer of stark realization flickering within them. "No," he shouted, panic lacing his voice. "Get back, Sophie." It was too late. The new player commanded the room as if it belonged to him. His presence unfolded a new layer of chaos, transforming the impending melee into a helpless dance of dread. Sophie felt sweat bead down her neck as bodies shifted, uncertainty souring the air. The hunter's bravado wavered, shadows flitting across his face. "You shouldn't have come here," he warned, a tremor crawling up his spine as he faced the newcomer. "Oh, and why not?" The man chuckled, that laugh dripping with something sinister, a predator amused by the actions of lesser creatures. "You see, I love a good fight, but it seems your little rebellion has soured my evening." For a moment, Sophie felt the weight of her gun grow heavier in her hand. The hunter's previous threats echoed in the empty spaces of her mind. Had she crossed a line that was never meant to be crossed? Before she could gather her thoughts, the man turned his dark gaze onto her, peering through both mask and bravado. "And your spark illuminates this dreary scene. What's your name, beautiful?" Her heart raced, panic slicing through her. "Sophie," she managed to say, hating how small her voice sounded against the chaos. "Sophie," he repeated, savoring it like a fine wine. "I think I like you. How would you like to join me instead of, well, whatever this is?" "It's not a game," Sophie shouted, the fire returning as she eyed him defiantly. What had he been sent to ruin? There was no way this could end well for any of them. "If you only knew the stakes," he replied tauntingly, his eyes glinting with malice. "You're in deeper than you realize, little fighter. But I can give you power a chance to shape this world. There's no need to waste your potential here." But her mind spun, piecing together the nightmare unfolding. He was part of it, part of the menacing web that trapped lives without remorse. No good would come from his offer. She knew that much. Then a shadow passed behind him. In the blink of an eye, someone emerged, darting beneath the chaos with unnatural speed, taking aim at the heart of the room's discord. The figure sprang into action, a white-hot flash in the darkness. "Duck!" the masked figure bellowed. Sophie didn't think. Instinctively, she dropped to the floor, the unexpected shot whistling past her. The room erupted into furious energy, bodies colliding, screams merging into a horrifying symphony. The poised billionaire stepped back, momentarily forced off balance. With her heart racing and breath shallow, a new shift was occurring. Allies and enemies blurred together in a whirlwind of violence. Sophie scrambled to her feet, knowing she had a choice to make. Standing tall amid the smoke and chaos, she needed to wrestle back the power that had slipped through her fingers. What did she truly want? As fists flew and the room descended into full chaos, Sophie's eyes landed on the man with the sinister smile, his dark ambitions clashing against the desperate shards of courage that flickered within her. Could she turn the tides? And what if the next shot changed everything? The roar of chaos vibrated through Sophie's bones as she rose from the floor, adrenaline surging through her veins like wildfire. The room spun around her, a whirlwind of desperate faces and flailing limbs, each moment stretching into eternity. The masked figure lunged back into the fray, quick and relentless. Sophie's heart hammered as she ducked and weaved through the crowd, searching for a way out or perhaps a way to turn the tide. Her eyes darted between the chaos, noting who was fighting and who was simply flailing. The hunter, cornered but deadly, seemed to shadow the mysterious newcomer, who moved like a dancer, elegant yet lethal. "Get down!" Sophie yelled to a nearby bystander, who was frozen in shock. She shoved him aside, just as another shot rang out, slicing through the air and embedding itself into the wall beside them. Plaster dust ballooned like smoke from an explosion. She glanced back at the man in the suit, the dark smile still plastered across his face, the gun trained on the hunter. But there was a glimmer in his eye, as if he was reveling in the turmoil. Sophie felt a cold knot of realization spiral in her stomach. He wants this, she thought. He wants him to fight, to bleed. Choose your side, Sophie. The masked figure appeared beside her, catching her off guard. He was fiercely intense, determined. "We can't let this continue." Sophie met his gaze, feeling the weight of his words. "But what is the right choice?" she asked, her voice breathless and raw. The glimmering world around her blurred into uncertainty. Could she align with him, or would she be stepping into a trap set by the dark man in the suit? Suddenly, the smile broadened and the billionaire's voice cut through the noise. "Let us make this a little more interesting." And with that, he raised his gun, firing into the ceiling. The shot rang like a thunderclap, sending a shower of debris cascading down, an explosion of confusion that sent everyone reeling. "Stay sharp. We need a plan," the masked figure shouted, grabbing Sophie's arm, pulling her closer. Pieces of the ceiling crumbled, chaos enveloped them. In that moment of distraction, Sophie felt clarity wash over her. There was no turning back. The stakes were far more than survival. They were larger than her, enveloping her in a game set by powerful players who treated lives as numbers. She needed to make her voice heard. "Listen, we can't let him control us," she shouted, her heart pounding against her ribcage. "He is here to play games, twisting us against each other." The masked figure nodded. "I can fight him, but we have to unite everyone else." His voice carried authority that thrummed with urgency. "Are you ready to step up?" Sophie took a deep breath, fear mingling with determination. "Let us do this," she said, feeling the weight of resolve settle over her like armor. She stepped forward, heart racing, willing the crowd to hear her. "Fight together, or we all fall apart." Voices stirred, combining into a reluctant murmur that turned into calls for alliance. One by one, they began to shift, eyes darting to the figure who had intruded upon their chaos. The tide was beginning to change, but suddenly a throaty laugh sliced through the air like a blade. The billionaire was back on his feet, radiating an aura of dark amusement. "How quaint! You think you can unify these fools?" "Please," he mocked, raising his weapon again. Then came the worst words they could hear. "But what if I told you? There is something far worse hidden within this room." Sophie froze, every instinct screaming at her that the time for questions was short. In that instant, as darkness stretched its claws into their space, She felt the weight of an impending revelation, a truth that could alter everything. What was he talking about? She thought, panic bubbling within her. And then the floor began to tremble. What new horror lay beneath their feet? The trembling intensified, a menacing vibration coursing through the floor like a heartbeat gone rogue. The moment stretched as Sophie locked eyes with a masked figure beside her. They were on the edge, the precipice of something far more sinister than they had ever imagined. "What is happening?" she gasped, her voice barely a whisper, drowned out by the escalating chaos around them. "It's an old trap," he replied, urgency dripping from his words. "We have to move. Now." Before she could react, the ground split open. Dust and debris erupted like a mini volcano, sending everyone stumbling back. Screams painted the air, agony mixing with the already suffocating tension. A deep, echoing growl resonated from below, like a caged animal awakening after years of slumber. The floorboards splintered, revealing a gaping maw of utter darkness. "Get back!" Sophie shouted as the ground continued to fracture. The masked figure pulled her close, and they retreated toward the wall, desperately searching for safety in a dilapidated room on the verge of collapse. The billionaire stood with an unsettling calm, watching the chaos unfold with an almost sadistic pleasure. "Look what I've unleashed," he bellowed, a twisted grin painting his face. "The real game begins now." In that fleeting moment, the surface of the ground flecked with a strange, unsettling light. Tendrils of shadow began to crawl out from the abyss below, thin and slithering as if testing the air. And then came the sounds, horrific, grating noises that tore through the panic. "Is that?" Sophie hesitated, dread pooling in her stomach. "Yes," the masked figure replied grimly, his grip tightening on her arm. "It's here to claim what it wants. We can't stay." Sophie's heart raced. "What do we do?" The crowd was in full disarray, bodies colliding in a frantic push toward the exits. A few desperate souls were armed, though their weapons seemed paltry against the unknown horror sneaking toward them. She could see the hunter still fighting, his determination unyielding despite the chaos. But even he could be overwhelmed by sheer numbers, or worse, a newly revealed monstrosity. "Stay close," he yelled, but even with the urgency in his tone, she felt the weight of doubt. "What's our best chance?" she asked, veering her eyes back to the billionaire. "Distract him," the masked figure exclaimed, his voice slicing through the din. "We can't let him concentrate on his full control." With instinct guiding her, Sophie dived between the swirling motes of panic, moving toward the dark figure standing at the epicenter of this madness. "Hey, you want control? You're just a coward hiding behind a wall of terror," she shouted, her own courage rising against the enveloping fear. The billionaire's smile faltered, just a fraction. She seized that moment, her heart hammering against her ribcage. "Focus on me. Face the truth of your own pathetic game." Suddenly, the shadows recoiled, as though her words had ignited something deep within the depths. A muffled roar reverberated from below, voracious and demanding. "What? No," snarled the billionaire, his confidence cracking for the first time. "You think you can undo me? You're nothing." But Sophie pressed on, a surge of defiance rushing through her blood. "Maybe I'm nothing, but these people, these lives, they matter more than your sick pleasure." A surge of energy crackled in the air as Sophie felt something shift. The shadows hesitated, their movement stuttering. It was a gamble, and she was all in. "Now!" the masked figure shouted, his blade glinting even in the dim light of the chaotic scene. But just as they prepared to lance out, the shadows erupted, growing monstrous shapes that roared with primal rage, ready to swallow everything whole. Sophie's breath caught in her throat, the realization dawning like a weight in her chest. This wasn't just a battle for survival. It felt like a war won against forces beyond her comprehension. And just before the abyss unleashed its full power, the masked figure turned to her. "Hold on tight. Whatever happens next," a thunderous crash erupted, plunging them into a darkness filled with chaos. "What have we awakened?" Sophie wondered, a screaming silence deep in her soul. And in that one moment, her future seemed to hang by a thread, teetering on the edge of an irreversible fate. What emerged from the darkness? The shadows writhed and twisted, forming ghastly shapes that loomed over the room like jagged teeth hungry for flesh. Sophie's heart raced as she felt the tremors reverberate through her bones. This was it. There was no turning back. Stay together. She heard the masked figure shout, his voice cutting through the cacophony around them. This isn't just about us anymore. With hell raging in every corner, Sophie gripped the gun tighter. She could feel the heaviness of decisions hanging in the air, every second a glaring moment demanding action. What do we do? She gasped, fear threading through her words. Draw the light. Channel it. He was talking to her, urging her up. You can help guide them away from the others. A blinding flash erupted from the depths of the void, illuminating the faces twisted in fear. In that instant, time slowed. Sophie shot a glance back at the hunter, who smirked, unfazed. Only his eyes revealed the flicker of uncertainty. Focus on me, she yelled, determination driving her voice. I want to let us fail. The shadows hesitated, shrinking as her voice hit them like a beacon of hope. The other fighters rallied behind her, their fear morphing into action, each step drawing them closer to the light she sought to conjure. The masked figure surged ahead, expertly deflecting the oncoming assault. Keep pushing, he roared, adrenaline surging through him like fire. Sophie locked eyes with him, feeling the weight of their shared purpose. She raised the gun high, letting her energy pulse through it, aiming for the shadows, the darkness that wrapped around them like a shroud. The weapon became a conduit for her resolve. Get back, she shouted, focusing everything she had. The shadows recoiled, thrashing violently, bubbling up as if sensing a threat that ignited ancient instincts. Cords of energy crackled in the air, shimmering as she powered through. You can't take us, she screamed, each word laced with defiance. Her courage surged, and the gun exploded with radiance, a burst of light slicing through the gloom. The shadows shrieked, retreating as the brilliance forced them back, but the moment was fleeting. The terrifying growl echoed from below, rising up like a tidal wave ready to crush everything. Stay close. The masked figure shouted again, eyes locked on hers with fierce intensity. We push them together, or we don't survive at all. Suddenly, the hunter lunged towards her, his figure darting like a viper in the fading light. You're making a mistake, he screamed as he reached for her, but she sidestepped quickly, pulling the trigger. The shot rang true, the bullet grazing his shoulder and sending him sprawling back. Leave us alone, she yelled, adrenaline pushing her farther than she'd ever thought possible. But the shadows groaned, wrapping around the room like a monstrous serpent, inflating and collapsing, each pulse like a heavy heartbeat. She felt a shift occur, the energy cascading and altering in waves of dark, hungry force intertwining with desperation and resolve. Now, it's now or never, the masked figure shouted, and without hesitation, they charged, a united front against the chaos. Sophie steadied herself next to him, feeling every ounce of strength surge within. Light enveloped them, and the air buzzed with electric anticipation. The collective will of the fighters, the ones who once cowered, now ignited a spark of resistance. We want to let you win, Sophie screamed. The shadows roared in defiance, pushing forward, but they met united strength. And then silence, a moment suspended in time as they pooled their light together, a force of brilliance against the darkness. With a final surge, the shadows collided with their power, disintegrating as if exposed to the sun's unstoppable rays. Screams erupted, but this time they were shouts of victory, echoes of bravery rising from the depths of despair. Push through. We can do it, Sophie cried, every ounce of strength channeled with focus. The shadows dissolved further, the gun shining brightly in her hand as she led the charge, feeling the determination radiate from everyone around her. The void beneath them trembled violently, and then exploded outward. A blinding light engulfed the room, washing over them like cleansing rain, dissipating fear and darkness alike. The hunter felt his knees, caught off guard by the onslaught. Sophie felt lightheaded, dizzy, like she had drawn the breath of a new beginning. As the last wisp of shadow dissipated, the air changed, lifting the weight from her chest. They'd done it. They'd fought back. That a hush fell over the room, only punctuated by breathless gasps and the crackling energy still flickering in the air. The masked figure turned to her, eyes wide with exhilaration. "You did it, Sophie. We did it." But the moment began to shift. Tension still threaded through them. The battle had felt won, but the war was not over. The hunter glared at her, fury simmering beneath calm. "You think this is the end? You've unleashed something far bigger than you can handle. It doesn't end here." Sophie understood his words as raw truth, a painful reminder of the power that could still lurk beyond the veil. But she also knew one fundamental thing: the fight for her freedom had ignited a spark within her. "Let it come," she declared, voice unwavering. "Whatever darkness lies ahead, we're ready for it now." And as they prepared to face the inevitable, united in strength and purpose, Sophie felt something shift irrevocably within her. There was no turning back. "Let us end this for all of us." The air became electric once more, anticipation fluttering wild in the depths of her heart, the thrill of impending adventure filling her soul. With a team at her back and a fire in her spirit, she was ready to confront whatever the future held. But the journey wouldn't be easy. It would demand everything. And in that wild, fiery moment, she understood that true power wasn't about fear or control. It was about standing tall and fighting for what mattered, no matter the cost. As they stood together on that precipice of uncertainty and strength, Sophie knew this wasn't just her story. It was theirs, all of them. The fight was just beginning. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss the next exclusive stories that will unfold. Smash the like button now to feed the algorithm and support the ongoing adventure that awaits. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories. What did you think of Sophie's transformation? And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. You need to show your support. Only true fans understand its importance.